During the last generation, Nintendo gamers missed out on many of the generation's best multi-platform titles, but over the past few years these games have started to appear on the Switch, be it Skyrim, Diablo 3, Saints Row 3, or even current gen hits like Doom. The Switch third-party lineup has been truly impressive. One series that has never been released on a Nintendo console is Bioshock. And after many a rumour, the game was finally announced in a recent direct, all back earlier this year. Bioshock the collection is finally here, but have the team at 2K done a good job at bringing the famed series to the Switch? Let's find out. Bioshock the Collection is, as you can guess from the title, a collection of Bioshock games. You get the original Bioshock in its remastered state, its sequel Bioshock 2 also in its remastered state, and Bioshock Infinite the complete edition. You also get every bit of DLC for the game included. This is the same package as the Bioshock collection that was released a few years ago on PS4 and Xbox One. I guess we should talk about the presentation first, as I guess a lot of you want to know how it runs. As for .play, the games all run at what I guess is a dynamic resolution, aiming for 1080p, but mostly staying around I'd say 900p or a little bit lower. Bioshock 1 does look lovely with some graphical improvements over the last gen originals, though it can be a bit hard to see at times due to the dark environments. Bioshock 2 looks great and does include some new graphical improvements, and Bioshock Infinite looks beautiful. Its art style really does work well on the Switch. Bioshock 1 and 2 seems to be staying at the highest resolution for most of the time, mainly due for them being older last gen titles. As for Infinite, because it's one of the latter last gen titles, its resolution can drop more frequently, but that being said, it still looks lovely and is a nice marked improvement over the last gen versions. On to portable play now, and again what we're seeing here is a dynamic resolution of 720p, though it does drop a bit here and there in the game's busier sections, but playing on the smaller screen you don't really notice it that much, and for me it does feel like a much more cleaner and enjoyable experience. Also, there's something special about seeing these old games running on such a small machine that has me excited to play these games all over again. As for the frame rate, we've got a 30fps cap here for all three games, and I'm happy to report that each and every one of these games does stick to its 30fps cap with hardly a drop in sight, which is hugely impressive. I know a few folks would have liked a 60fps option, or at least an option for an uncapped frame rate, but I think the developers have done a top job getting these games running on the Switch. On to the games now, and Bioshock 1 was originally released all the way back in 2007, and it really did leave a mark on the gaming community when it released. Critics hailed it as a masterpiece, and still, after all these years, it stands up very well today. This game sees you playing as Jack, who's in an airplane that crashes into the ocean, only for him to find himself near a mysterious lighthouse. Upon entering the lighthouse, Jack enters the mysterious lift that leads him to the underwater city of Rapture. What looks to be a beautiful underwater utopia actually holds some very dark secrets, and it's up to you to survive and find out what actually is going on. The game's story is incredibly strong, but for those who haven't played it yet, I don't really want to spoil it for you. The game is entirely first person, and it is really a great choice as you really do appreciate the world the developers have built here. You go through Rapture shooting enemies with either guns or plasmids, which are special powers like electricity, for example. You can upgrade Jack how you see fit with special powers, weapon upgrades and special abilities. There's a great sense of player choice here to allow you to shape Jack how you see fit. During your journey to the ravaged underwater city of Rapture, you'll come across all sorts of different nasties along your journey, from the many different spices and robots, but easily the most deadly enemy you'll face is the Big Daddies, the character that was originally on the game's box art. These hulking giant guardians of the Little Sisters can defeat you in a couple of hits. Anyway, after all these years, this 12 to 15 hour adventure is still an utter delight, and you can see why people speak so fondly of it. On to Bioshock 2 now, and this for me is the weakest in the trilogy. Not a bad game by all means, it's actually really good, but not that piece of magical wonder that the original was. This entry sees you playing as the series' iconic Big Daddy as he goes through the torn city of Rapture, dispatching the many spices that roam the city. Gameplay wise, it's very similar to the original, but you do get to use some of the Big Daddy tools like the drill sidearm. The game's opening is a bit drawn out, but overall it's an enjoyable but not an overall memorable part of the series. And finally in this package we have its most recent title, Bioshock Infinite, taking an entirely different approach to its underwater prequels and going straight up for the skies. Set in Columbia, a gorgeous and bright city in the sky that is equally as wonderful as Rapture. You play as a former Pinkerton Booker DeWitt that's set out to find a young woman trapped called Elizabeth. The city, when you first enter it, is beautiful, but once you start playing through the game, it eventually starts to show its disturbing and dark side. It's a story very strong with plenty of intrigue and epic moments, and the character of Elizabeth is very good indeed. Gameplay now, and Infinite does stick to the gameplay template of the previous games as it's an explorative FPS, but this time it's a much more action heavy affair this time around, with many more firefights. The special powers are back but are now called Vigors, and this allows Booker to cast electric or possess enemies. Booker also comes equipped with a sky hook, a special hook that you can grind on rails that feels very much like a roller coaster at times. We also have an AI partner this time around with Elizabeth, and she is a rather helpful companion, throwing you ammo and help when you need it. But also she has a few secrets of her own that I won't spoil. Again, like Bioshock 1 and 2, Infinite is a fairly lengthy adventure, taking you a good 12 to 15 hours to reach the game's conclusions. So with all three games together, you're looking at a good 40 to 50 hour experience. And this is not even talking about the various bonus content here, such as all the story DLC and the challenge maps. Though Bioshock 2's multiplayer isn't included here whatsoever, we also have a museum with concept art and director's commentary, which is a great addition and a nice insight into development of these titles. For those who are intending to purchase the game, be it physically or digitally, you'll need a microSD card to fully play the games, as you need a stonking 31GB download to play all three games fully. If you get the physical edition, the game ships on the 16GB cartridge and you get a small part of each game on the cartridge, but you'll have to download the rest of the games. Thankfully, each game's download can be downloaded separately, so it's not one huge download, but it's still a pain in the backside, and after The Witcher 3 last year, it would have been nice if 2K did stretch the boat out and actually got a bigger gigabyte cart. Conclusion time now, and still, after all these years, there's nothing quite like the Bioshock series, and with this collection for Switch, it finally gives Nintendo fans their first taste of this wonderful series. From its fantastic storylines that are incredibly in-depth, to its crunchy combat and glorious exploration, these games have aged perfectly and still feel as fresh today as they did all those years ago. And with this collection on Switch, all three games have been masterfully ported to Nintendo's hybrid machine, with every single bit of DLC included to boot. The only fault I have with the collection is that you'll need a microSD card to fully play all games, which is a shame, but it's not a deal breaker, so with that I'm giving Bioshock, the collection on Switch, a 9 out of 10 with the title of brilliant. As always, like, rate and subscribe, and until next time, happy gaming, bye!